This episode, the answer is yes. Baja Sessions is brought to you by Baja Bound Insurance Services. Driving to Mexico? You can buy and print out your Mexican auto insurance policy online in minutes with their easy-to-use website. They also have great travel information to help you plan your trips south of the border. Visit BajaBound.com, the easiest way to get Mexican auto insurance. Hey, everybody, I am re-airing the Drew Deckman interview I did. It's one of my favorites, and I just love what Drew's doing, and I know a lot of you have missed this one. So I'm going to go ahead and re-air it for this week's Baja Sessions. I hope you enjoy it, and tune in next week for a new and refreshing Baja Sessions. Your place from Matt Martelli with Mad Media, and he was promoting it through his efforts or just coming down here. Who knows? Matt's always all over the place. And I'd see your face and his posts and stuff like that. I thought, yeah, I'm going to have to get there one day. But he didn't put a lot of importance on it, and I'm sorry that I didn't, because now I'm playing catch up.
That's all right. Welcome home.
Yeah, thank you. And you have delivered every time on a great meal. And I would just love to hear how you got to this space, because I know you're not from Mexico, although it's your home now, and you live and breathe it. But where did you grow up? Where did you come from?
So I was born in Washington, D.C. Grew up my dad was in the Army. Grew up in Georgia. Went to college in Memphis, Tennessee. Have a degree in philosophy, of all things.
Hold on.
Which is why I boil water for a living.
How did you get to a philosophy degree? What made that decision?
All right. Well, I started out at the United States Merchant Marine Academy at Kings Point.
Okay.
Which is a service academy like the Air Force Academy at West Point. Congressional nomination, the whole thing. It took me about a year to figure out that I wasn't built for the military, and the military wasn't built for me.
Okay, I've heard that before.
All respects reserved, and
physically or mentally?
I think more mentally.
Yeah.
Just sort of like I don't like having people tell me what to do, kind of thing. In general, in any way, I mean, like even waiting in line in the convenience store, it's like, no, I don't want to give a donation to. Don't ask me questions. I just give me my change, let me go.
Yeah, let me move on.
And at the time, my dad was a dentist. He's still around. And so I said, I'm going to go to dental school. I left the Merchant Marine Academy and started taking pre-dental classes, and that didn't last very long either.
So that wasn't for you either, right?
That wasn't for me either. And I started taking some introductory philosophy classes. And for me, the philosophy part was really interesting, because it's everyday life.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I was seeing so many colleagues that were going to school to get a job as opposed to get an education. Mm-hmm. And so for me, when I made the decision to go full-time and do the philosophy degree, really my decision was I want an education. So few people actually work in the field of study that they study in university. So why not do something for me that'll make me a better human being, a better world citizen, a person better able to communicate with anybody for 10 or 15 minutes at least.
Yeah.
And then going from there.
What I love about that's one of the things we talk about on this show is a lot of people, they find themselves at university, maybe in a study that their parents encouraged them to go in, but it wasn't necessarily a good fit for them. Right. So then they get out of college. Just use a lawyer as an example. They went to law school. They have a law degree, and they get out of school and they don't want to be a lawyer.
Right. I want to be a chef. Oh.
Right.
How many years you just spend doing that?
Yeah. And well, the problem with that though is that they live their life with guilt, thinking, "Oh, I have this law degree, but I'm a chef." Right. But what's wrong with that? You go to school to discover life and the things that you might want to do more. And it sounds like, you went to dental school, you realized, okay, I don't really like that. I'm going to do something else. And it was okay.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think the more things you're exposed to in life in general, the more broad your horizon is.
Yeah.
Which is something that for me was really important. I went to finally decided after working in the regular sector in the world a couple years after college that I wanted to be a chef. Mm-hmm. I wanted to cook for a living. I had been cooking since I was 15 years old in restaurants as I was looking at options for college. And I said, well, I don't really want to go to culinary school because I don't want it to mess up my passion for my hobby. I really like this, and I don't want to screw it up by it being my everyday job. And And then I went on and did, a whole bunch of other things. And I remember my dad sent me a book called Do What You Love, The Money Will Follow.
Uh-huh. Let me ask you something, though. So you were passionate about cooking at a young age. You didn't want to screw up your hobby. At that time, because I know the end of this story, right? But at that time, what were you passionate about cooking and making?
Really anything. I was, when you're on the front end of the learning curve, everything's exciting.
Yeah.
Right? It's like one of the things that I started from really early on was, cooking for my parents. My parents would invite friends over, and I'd do these big elaborate dinner parties, and I'd use every single dish and every single fork and every single pot that my parents had. We had to borrow from the neighbors, and it would just be piled up because there's nowhere to walk at the end of the night. And now when I cook, it's, we finish the meal, and it doesn't even look like we did anything.
Yeah, clean as you go.
Right? But, there's always like, well, what are we going to eat? I said, I don't know. Let's go to the store.
Yeah.
And that, ever since very, very early on, the market has really, really been my inspiration. I'm looking for the word, and I'll remember it in about 5 minutes, and I'll come back to it.
Well, I'll tell you why the word's coming back to you. I get that too, by the way. Memory fade after 50. I'm not a chef, but I did spend several years as an executive chef of a ski resort, and people always ask me, well, where'd you learn how to cook? I literally, when I was 8 years old, cooked everything on the Bisquick box.
Oh, right on.
There's like 8 recipes on there. I cooked everything on it like twice.
Yeah, cool.
And I fell in love with it.
I'm sure you get some sort of a diploma for that.
Maybe
you?
I should call him, right? So the store was your inspiration at an early age. So you moved on in life onto a career doing what?
Well, my first job out of college. First of all, when I graduated from college, I wanted to be a baseball umpire. I was going to go to umpire school. I wanted to be a professional umpire. That's what I was going to do. I was going to work in baseball. Well, I didn't do that. And then my dad sent me this book, like I said, and I didn't really think much about it, and woke up like 6 months later, and I said, I want to cook for a living. Woke up. I was living in North Dakota, of all places. Not real sure how I got there. And
that's another show, right?
It's another show completely. And I moved back home to Atlanta and started cooking for the first time every day of my life professionally. That was 1993. So we're going on 25 years, or 35 years, 25 years.
Don't ask me to do math right
25 years of cooking every day of my life. And it's been a really interesting ride so far.
What's amazing is that ride that you've been on. So tell me about where you were where was that first professional cooking job at?
It was at a place called the World Trade Club in the World Trade Center in Atlanta, Georgia. There's a bunch of different World Trade Centers throughout the world. It's not just what the Twin Towers was. It's a Center for International Commerce, and there was a private club in this space, and I got a job there, and I worked there for, I don't know, a year and a half, and my parents had a friend who had a hotel in Germany and also had businesses in our town in Georgia, and he said, why don't you come, you can come work at my hotel for 6 months. I'll employ you as an employee in my business in the United States, and you just come as basically on consultant paperwork. And so I thought I was going to Europe for 6 months, and I ended up staying 10 years.
Oh my gosh!
And ended up cooking in France, Switzerland, and Germany. That was really, I say I haven't been to cooking school, but that was my cooking school.
Front lines. Yeah. Front lines.
Exactly.
So back to that first cooking job as a professional, did it screw up your hobby?
No.
Or did it just enhance what you were doing?
No, it just gave it a nitrous injection into the carburetor.
Yeah. What type of food were you cooking at the time?
God, I don't even remember. It was
a long time ago.
A long time ago. I mean, the chef was he was from Thailand, had been living in the United States for 15, 20 years. His name was Kring Krai Nagampun, and I think my job ended up being, at the end, was translating Kring Krai's English into English for everybody else who was there, and it was for some reason I understood what he said, and nobody else. Either they wanted to just be stubborn and not understand what he was saying, but I was working with him every day all the time, and so I would translate his Thai accented English into Southern drawl, I guess.
Yeah.
And so within a year and a half, I went from sort of being an apprentice to actually I was the sous chef. It was by attrition mainly. They couldn't find anybody else, and well, this person leaves and this person leaves. So what's that guy? Make him sous chef. And so by the time I left, I was writing the menus, and at the time, you're in cookbooks and you're in shows, and this is a little bit before internet use was like an everyday thing.
Yeah.
So it was mostly cookbooks, and it was mostly going to the marketplace, and so it was like American Southern fusion. We were all over the board. It was, I found some of the menus recently, and I was like, what the hell was I thinking?
But were you having a good time doing it?
I was, and I was learning a lot, right? And,
yeah.
And so I was given opportunities that, I think everybody needs the opportunity to make mistakes on somebody else's dollar, right?
Yeah.
Well,
that's the ideal way.
Pay for your mistakes, and you learn, or you don't.
There's a pretty decent food scene in Atlanta as well, right? I mean, I've been there a couple times.
I've been gone for so long, I couldn't tell you the name of one restaurant that's there. I haven't been back to Atlanta, and my folks have moved away. My sisters, we don't have any family there. I haven't been back in 20 years.
Yeah.
But so Europe was really my school.
Let me do a quick disclaimer for our listeners because I'm picking up on a little bit. We are outside your restaurant overlooking the vineyards, drinking wine. I can hear the birds and a little bit of breeze, so we're picking up some breeze on the mic. So sorry, everybody. We are enjoying ourselves immensely out here. So you wind up in Europe. Where did you go? Who were you working for? And what did you learn over there?
So I started out working for my parents' friend in a restaurant that was in a hotel that was average. But what made it a challenge was I showed up with zero German.
Okay.
Right? They gave me an apartment to live in. I remember the first weekend. I love this story. I got in on a Friday morning or Thursday afternoon. I don't remember. But there was like 4 days until I reported to work on Monday.
Uh-huh.
Didn't speak any German. Didn't understand any street signs. I totally out of my element.
Yeah.
I got lost so bad 2 days in a row trying to find my way back to my apartment. I was anxious. I was uncomfortable buying anything in the grocery stores. I had not exchanged enough money, so all I had was dollars, and nobody wanted it. This is way back when the Deutschmark was still around.
Yeah.
There's a marketplace. I walked into the big public market, and I'm just walking around looking at all this food, and I'm almost like have this angst, this fear of like even communicating with anybody because I didn't want to sound like that American that didn't know how to speak German.
Yeah.
In front of this lady who was selling citrus fruit, and I'm just looking at her, and she's looking at me, and she hands me a bag, big bag of oranges, and I handed her some money, and I got some change back. We didn't say a word to each other, and that's all I ate all weekend was oranges, and it was humorous.
Yeah.
And then as time went on, and you look back on things like that, and you go, all right, well, now I can arguably speak German, English, French used to be fluent, and now Spanish is definitely fluent.
Yeah.
But at the time, it just seemed so like this mountain that you almost, what's the proverb? As you approach the mountain from afar, it looks uncircumable. It's huge. And as you get closer and closer and closer, you realize that the slopes, aren't near as steep, and they're much easier to manage. And once you're actually on the mountain, you figure out, oh wow, I'm like all the way sort of up here, and I didn't even notice the change because once you get there, the change in elevation is so slight. Maybe the very end is steep, but to get to a certain point, it's just 1 foot in front of the other.
Yeah, it's gradual.
And so that was a big part of sort of the learning process for me was, once you learn how to learn another language, once you learn how to assimilate yourself into a new culture, the second time you do it, it's easier because now you sort of learned how to learn.
Yeah.
As opposed, learning German doesn't really help you learn French, but it helps you learn to learn.